1, 2, 3, 4.
Hello and welcome back to the third season of Laying on the Table, the Southern Board Game Podcast with the accent on Southern. James, it's hard to believe that we are starting season 3.
It's amazing.
Today. Oh. No, you're good. I talked over you. Old habits die hard.
No worries.
As usual, I am Joe Mahaffey. I'm one of your hosts who is clearly recovering from the lovely winter cold that we have. And
I'm James Engelhart, your other co-host, who is, getting over a series of colds because toddler.
Yay.
So, yeah. But that and the 18 to 22-year-olds that hang out in enclosed spaces and cough at each other's mouths as well. So, toddlers, daycare, college students. Yeah. Yep.
Well, it's great to be back. Hey, before we get into it, I just want to remind everybody that Mythicon West is coming up in March 1st through March 3rd at the Doubletree in Asheville, North Carolina. A little bit of a fancier spot, perhaps. We had a great time at Mythicon in Charlotte back in November. I know I was supposed to post some video from that and have not yet done so just because of some personal stuff that I had to get through. But I will insert it in this particular broadcast right about here so you can see what James and I thought of Mythicon.
I thought it was awesome.
Yeah, I did too.
Just spoiler.
Yeah, spoiler.
All right. Welcome to Mythicon 2023 in Charlotte, North Carolina. It's Sunday. or something like that.
You're trying to take my job away from me.
I'm trying to take your job. Also, it's kind of amazing. Here we are on the same camera, facing the same direction.
That is kind of strange.
Shoulder to shoulder. It's pretty awesome.
Let's do a countdown.
Okay.
Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to Mythicon. Can you believe it? For the first time since 1989, James and I have had the opportunity to see each other in person, and it took the Mythicon game convention to make that happen.
In the same space, breathing the same air, playing the same games, man.
Yeah, no, we had a really good time.
Yeah.
So we've both been to a lot of different types of conventions. I don't think we've both been to a lot of gaming conventions.
That's correct.
But I think as far as a convention goes, Mythicon here in Charlotte, North Carolina, Mythicon 2023, we've been talking about it for a long time on the podcast, has done a really nice job.
I think so. They've sort of inherited the mantle of Mace, and there were a lot of people. I saw a lot of Mace gear, and people seem to be really pleased with the way that they've kind of picked up that Mace, if you will, and run with it.
Yeah, that's a great way to look at that. It's too bad they didn't have a Mace over there for the photo shoot. Although James and I got some really nice photos taken of the two of us. We will put them in the show notes below for you to see. Just how skinny he is and how skinny I am not.
Yes, the height difference. I can't see it on Zoom, but yeah.
That is true. But no, I really enjoyed it. I think, my highlight was this is the first time I've ever demonstrated a game at a con. I clearly did not budget enough time to actually get through all the way to the game. And that made me feel a little awkward. But then I discovered that a lot of people don't always finish the game. They learn the mechanics of the game. And that's one of the reasons that they're here is just to learn how to play the game. They don't have to get to the completion of it per se.
Well, and I think a highlight for me was getting to play Apiary.
Yeah.
And again, we got about halfway through that, and I felt like I had a really great experience and feel for the game. Had a really good time with that one. And so, but kind of makes the point there for you.
Well, what was funny about that too is that, when we had Jamie on, I told him, gosh, there isn't a game that Stonemaier doesn't publish that I just don't immediately, order sight unseen.
Right.
And then Apiary was announced and I didn't order it. Because for some reason, the way it was announced or something, it just didn't speak to me. But playing the game,
right?
I don't think I was out of the room, 5 minutes before I ordered it.
No, you're right on that, man.
Well, first of all, I got to say, I did go around to all the vendors to see if anybody here had it locally, because I didn't want to just order it without seeing if I could, give back to the folks that were here. And there were a lot of vendors here. Walking around the vendor groups, there were some people that were like actual board game stores that were here.
That's right.
A lot of artisans that had done some really nice game-themed artwork or just knickknacks, I guess, would be a way to look at it. And of course,
dice bags, dice jails. These are important.
And some really cool electronics that make your terrain really pop. I'm not going to talk them up now because I'm talking to that gentleman about coming onto the podcast. And I think that would be a really, really cool episode in and of itself.
Well, and it was nice because he was part of the whole crafting thread that was going through this. And they had a crafting competition that was really fun. There was a bunch of painting, just all kinds of interesting stuff. Lots of kids here too, which I was kind of surprised to see, happy to see. So it was a very family-friendly event.
Yeah, no, 100%. And it was a little interesting that we had board gamers and Shriners together in the same hotel. But
the Shriners were funny.
You know, it didn't, there were no cars that were...
Or funny hats. I was disappointed
yeah.
about the lack of funny hats.
Actually, it was kind of cool because my dad was a member of this Shriner organization, and I actually met an older gentleman who remembered my dad, and that was kind of cool.
That is cool.
You know, so it's just kind of funny how all the things came together. But I got to tell you, you know, there are a lot of organizers of this event, and you really can't put it on the mantle of one person or a few. Right. But obviously, Richard Fortuna, his wife, Karen Montgomery. Karen's an award-winning crafter. Nick Polimas and his family were all here. And there were a lot of people that were walking around with these like Mace OG kind of aspects to their
tags,
tickets. Yeah, these tags are great, you know. And I got to tell you too, they really did a nice job of keeping, you know, the overall agenda concise. You can't see this. Maybe I can scan it and put it on the show notes. But they also had a QR code, which was great because it took you to your personal calendar. So you always knew if I'm teaching something, when and where do I need to be?
Right.
If I am going to take something, learn something, where do I need to go and need to be? And
they also have the tag for Mythicon West in March.
Yep.
So if you wanted to get at the front of the line for that.
Does that mean we got to keep talking about Mythicon at the top of the show?
Pretty much, yeah. Okay. So I think so. But it was also, I mean, they had about 500 people here.
Yeah.
So it was a really great turnout.
Yeah, no, I think it was. And, you know, James and I got to play some games together. Obviously, we talked about apiary. We ran into my friend Grace that we've talked about on this podcast before as my Kickstarter Sherpa.
Right.
And we got to play Point City with her. And then today I brought in my copy of Earth. And it was something James and I decided we would play in the room where people play. And then Brian from my other D&D campaign, my first campaign, came by and he ended up joining us.
That was awesome.
A 2-player game becomes a 3-player game, and everybody seemed to have a good time.
Yeah. I mean, speaking of the sort of open areas, there were so many game spaces.
Yeah.
Some that clearly had been budgeted and slotted out for different games. But so many people just brought in bags of their own games. It was a fairly smallish library, but then I'm someone who lives with 600 plus games in my house, so I have judgment. But a lot of people just brought their materials. They brought their little their own dice towers. They brought their dice trays. They just all the little extra doodads. And it was just great to see people, clearly some of whom were friends, just hanging out with each other, or just wandering in and saying, hey, well, like the guy who taught us apiary, he was setting it up, and we said, we're just finishing up Point City. Can we play over here? He said, yeah, come join us.
Well, that's because we saw the bee.
Yeah.
We saw the bee. We were captured by the look and feel of the design of that game. And I think, and there were some designers here, a number of local designers.
That's
right. Got to see some pretty interesting games and some interesting publishers. I mean, I knew that we had a robust game design community in North Carolina. We've talked to a few of them. But I discovered some more through this process. I was also noticing that there were a number of teachers that were here, either demoing games or doing crafts and stuff like that. And I thought that was kind of cool. And then I was also impressed of the people that were drawn here. Mm-hmm. You know, obviously we talked to a number of people from Raleigh, a number of people from the Greenville-Spartanburg area of South Carolina.
That guy from Connecticut.
The guy from Connecticut. Yeah, absolutely. That's exactly where I was going next. I mean, you know, it was, and he was somebody who's been coming here for 20 some odd years to this event.
Since he was an undergrad at UNC Charlotte, just across the road.
Right, exactly right. So, you know, I think I love that the tradition of Mace is continuing in Mythicon. And I think that it's in the people who now have the stewardship of this event can look forward by not forgetting their past. And I think that's amazing. And I am certainly looking forward not only to coming here again, but also checking out some of the other cons as our schedules allow. But I got to say, great event. A lot of nice people, a lot of fun games. I would like to see, hopefully in the future, maybe, you know, some other types of designers and vendors come into play.
Sure.
And I know we've talked to a couple that maybe we can put this on their radar sometime in the future.
Yeah. I thought it was from what I understand, a great continuation of a tradition. And I think I look forward to another 20 odd plus years of playing the stuff. So.
Does that mean you're coming back next year?
I'm going to try to, yeah.
Do I have to go to Asheville?
You might.
Okay.
We'll figure that out.
Yeah. It gets cold in Nashville, doesn't it?
Yeah,
wait, there's a brewery there. Okay,
there are several breweries.
We're fine.
Yeah.
I'll be there. So as far as Joe and James go, and lay it on the table, we believe that Mythicon is a con worth checking out.
Oh, absolutely.
Particularly if you're in the Southeast.
Yep.
So as usual, I am not bored. I am bored gaming.
And I'm James Engelhardt, hoping that all of your tiebreakers break your way.
Probably should have said I was Joe Mahaffey.
Probably should have.
I didn't say that. I can only say it again. But you know what? You guys know who I am.
It's Joe.
We will see you guys soon. Thanks so much.
See y'all.
Bye.
So that was our review of Mythicon. I inserted it before here, which is why I'm talking funny. So let's kind of get into it, James. It's hard to believe New Year. We haven't really had an opportunity to do one of these either late October, early November. I'm trying to remember exactly the last time we did an episode.
Yeah, November. Yeah.
Holidays
it's been a hot minute. Yeah.
Holidays are hard. I hope everything was well with your family though, and that you had a good time.
Yeah, no, we had some travels. It was better last year. It was like 9 degrees and ice and snow and terrible. And this year there was a little bit of snow coming through the gaps down from West Virginia back to Greenville. But otherwise, it was pleasant. Got to get outside, which was nice. Yeah, played some games.
That's always
of course.
Play some games. Yes. And of course, it's frigid here today.
It's a little chilly, yeah.
It was 15 when I woke up this morning.
Yep.
So, anyway.
We had game night last night, and there's a couple Canadians in our group, somebody else who's from the upper Midwest, and they're like, 15 used to feel a lot warmer, but you get acclimatized and, suddenly you're like, yeah, you've been living in Greenville for 15 years, and 15 feels really chilly. So
that's fair. That's fair. Yeah. All right. Well, I just thought a few things here in the news that I wanted to kind of get into. First, this is not really news, but I've been talking about it for quite some time. I actually was able to organize a small group for the church that we go to, where I'm going to do a thing called Spirit Quest. AI helped me come up with the name, by the way. Where I'm going to teach board games for 8 weeks, and it's really more about fellowship and getting people into the game, and just sort of seeing how we make choices and how choices in games can sometimes reflect choices in life. So I'm looking forward to getting that off the ground. So for periodically, from time to time, I will share sort of how that is going and sort of what people think of the different games. We're going to use Wingspan. We're going to use a few others over the 8 week period, and I think it's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, that sounds awesome.
And speaking of choices that were made,
I
did just want to kind of note, and I'll put this in the show notes, a couple of YouTubers, Bob the World Builder and Professor Dungeon Master, have got some interesting videos on the OGL 1 year later.
Mm-hmm.
No real news other than just take a look at those. They were pretty interesting. And it was one of the conclusions of one of them is just sort of how all the other systems are now coming into view now. And it's just going to be kind of curious to see how this continues to influence the game. And people have seen their tabletop, their virtual tabletop, and have said nice things about it.
That's good.
So we'll just sort of see how this particular notion continues to grow and change based on what happened a year ago. And while we're on D&D news in that regard, James and I finished our campaign last Friday, a week ago Friday, and it was a almost 3-year campaign.
Yeah. Almost 3 years to the day. It's like 2 years, 11 months. I think we could probably do the whole what is it? Holiday Christmas thing. Like we've been dating for so
Curse of Strahd and Appalachia came to a conclusion.
It did.
With a 20 kill.
That was fantastic. Yeah, that was really delightfully dramatic. It's the kind of thing that you always hope for. The nat 20 on the final death stroke. Oh, it was beautiful.
So we're taking a little bit of a break from that right now, and then we'll figure out what's next with that particular group. So that's sort of what's been going on here. So,
Well, but before we go away from D&D, the new semester has started at Furman, and
Yeah.
I have my first year writing class doing games again. Last semester was a rocky experience. This semester, I already have a couple of gamers, a couple of students who are in long-term D&D campaigns or who do a lot of one-shots, have a good time with it. So they'll come up to me and we'll talk about, they're very excited about what one D&D is going to look like and how that's all going to play out. And it's not just the dudes who are playing D&D too. So I was excited to see that we've got a nice mix of gamers in the classroom. It was really super fun.
That's awesome. It's funny you mentioned that because I was at church today and I played bass. It was my week to play bass, and our minister, she has taken a position in Georgia to be the president of the foundation of the United Methodist Foundation, Georgia. So she's moved to Atlanta. So we're kind of in between right now. And so the district superintendent came to preach today.
Okay.
The district superintendent is a D&D player. And I knew this.
That's
and
awesome.
And I introduced myself and I said, I said, yes, my former pastor had told me about your dice affliction. And he goes, oh, she did she? Started to tell me that they're using Fantasy Grounds, which keeps statistics on your rolls.
Oh, wow.
And he is 25% of the time guaranteed to roll a natural one. And I thought that was a great.
You need to get new dice, man, obviously.
Great story. I thought it was pretty good.
That's pretty good.
Yeah. And that was just kind of fun to kind of see that we've come a long way from the satanic panic when your district superintendent is up there rolling the dice and taking names. And I like it.
Oh, that's awesome.
Well, that's cool.
Yeah.
I'm glad to know you're back in session at the Furman and do some new games.
Go Sasquatch. Yeah.
So, ironically, for what has been on our table since you would think being away as long as we have that I'd have a lot more to talk about than I do. And I can get into all of that later. We've just, for those of you who, I think I mentioned it before, I've got a mom who's in hospice and has been that way since 6 months. And just so when we got into the holidays, there were just a lot of distractions, which kept me from doing my normal due diligence with the podcast, as well as playing the games that we want to play. But we're kind of getting back into that rhythm. Mom's fine. She's still okay. But
that's good.
So when I referred all that, I just don't want people their minds to wander in the wrong way. But Dale and I were able to get a couple of games out on the table around the holidays. First and foremost was Point City.
That's such a fun game. Yeah.
Yeah, we learned that at Mythicon. And
yes, we did.
Friend of the show, Grace, and it was just a nice, fun, accessible game, and we enjoyed it. And then
how did it work 2-player?
It worked really well, actually.
Oh, good.
We got a lot out of it. We actually got to play it 3-player once with the daughter and with one of the daughters, and so that was kind of good to see the contrast. And it's just easy to pick up and lay down and do, and so that's another nice thing about it. It's a good portable card game. It's made by the same people that do Point Salad. I think it's the sequel to Point Salad.
It is. Yep. I like the theme a little bit better, and I understand the gameplay is slightly different, but not too far. They're clearly family. The family resemblance is strong.
Right. So that was good. And then in the same vein, since you and I learned Apiary at Mythicon, I got picked up a copy of Apiary and was able to get that on the table and play that. And that was a little, even though we had learned it, we had taken some time away from Mythicon before I brought it up again. And it just took a while to kind of get back in the rhythm. But we played it a couple of times. And the first time I won and the second time Dale won. So it's a good balanced game. And it reminded me of some of the elements that we talked about, like how, like in Lost Ruins, or Arnak, the Lost Ruins of Arnak.
Yeah, that's
choose your pathway to your points.
Yep.
It had a similar feel to that because of just the different mechanisms that you could pull in Apiary. So I thought that was just it's clearly it's one of those Jamie Stegmaier type of games, even though he's not really the designer, but you can feel his influence all over it.
And so in Apiary, do you have to do some retooling for the 2-player, or does it just like go out of the box and it's good to go?
You use the other side of the board.
Oh, okay.
But it's pretty balanced. Yeah, it was.
I like that because there's you can either change some rules or have an AI kind of non-player, or redesign the game board just to tighten things up. I'm thinking.
It's funny you mentioned that because I'm gonna talk about it later in the podcast. But we had planned to get Fox Experiment out on the tape.
Okay.
For this meeting, and Dale, I said, listen, I had a crazy week at work. I need you to just go ahead and watch the video and be prepared to kind of tell me how it goes. And it's very similar to A Tale Between Two Cities and Between Castles of Mad King Ludwig.
Yeah.
So that you have in a 2-player game, you have to have like a fake third player or an
Okay, so it is. Yep. All right.
And so I have to take a look at that before we get Fox Experiment out. I'll talk about that a little bit later, but
cool.
But that's why I only have those 2. But I see you have a few more, and I'm familiar with them. So I'm going to let you kind of take us through it, and I'll tell you the 1 or 2 that I am familiar with.
Sure. So last night, as I mentioned, was game night. It was chilly here in the Carolinas. Low teens, so it didn't get too bad. And again, we had Canadians and other people who had lived in the North countries. Like, I still have the gear, or no, I don't have the gear, so I'm just chilly. It's okay. But we played. I think there were 4 games going on. My table played the Portuguese-based Coimbra, because we were either doing that or Winter Kingdom, so either thinking warm thoughts or leaning into the winter thing. So we thought the warm thoughts.
Makes sense.
And then we had another table playing Horrified, and then another table playing For Humor. So there were 10 people altogether, 8 guests, and then Laura and myself. So I was running the Coimbra table. We played 1 game of Coimbra, and they played 2 games of Horrified and 2 games of For Humors.
Well,
and then
which Horrified?
That was the original.
Okay.
The one with Frankenstein and the movie classics. Yeah. Because we knew we were going to have 3 tables of players because 10 makes 4, 3, and 3 a pretty good mix. And so I said, hey, could you bring something? So he brought Horrified. And then it was just hilarious that Horrified and For Humors played. Then they swapped players. The same people taught the games again and played it through before we were even done with our one game of Coimbra.
Awesome.
But it was pretty fun. And then I've been, picked up some stuff over the holidays, got some gifts from people. So played Dorfromantik, the board game, which I have. Dorfromantik I have is in the German language version. I have friends from Germany who sent it to me. So
nice.
That was pretty fun to have that. It's a really mellow tile laying game. And it's interesting because it's also a campaign game. So as you're doing you score at the end of the, it's a co-op. So you score at the end of the game, and then however you score lets you unlock different little boxes that come in there. So you can keep playing Dorfromantik for a long time. And there's a whole lot of Elizabeth Hargrave here and related peoples, because we also play Tussie Mussy, which works great 2-player. You played Tussie, yeah.
Dale, that's one of Dale's favorites.
We
have that and the expansion for it.
Oh, nice. I was talking to one of the managers at Boardwalk, the game store, one of the game stores here in Greenville, and he said it's hard to keep Tussie Mussy in stock, and then they'll hit go every so often, the publishers will, so it's not continuously coming out.
Right.
So kind of funny, but I do love the I pick you choose and just that simple 4-card tableau. It's just fantastic. Laura really likes it.
Yeah, and it's a good solo game too.
Oh, okay.
Dale played that solo times. Yeah,
I'll have to check that out. Flourish is from just a couple years ago. The base game is super simple. You've got a hand of 6 cards. You pick one to play in front of you, and you hand one to each of your neighbors. And it's in the end, you want a tableau of a 3x4, and some cards score at the end of the round. Some cards score at the end of the game. It looks like, I don't know, crushingly dull if you just play the basic game, but it comes with 2 expansions and 2 options for play, and if you fold all of it together, it's a pretty solid. Also, you can play co-op or competitive, but it looks pretty good. It's been fun to play.
We actually backed this on Kickstarter and got it out and have enjoyed it. We haven't played in a hot minute, which is a good reminder.
Yeah.
We'll be talking about all the things that have been added to the Shelf of Shame here soon. So, yeah, but yeah, the Flourish is a great game.
Yeah, and it has entirely unnecessary bits, but just make the game super fun. Like when you're handing your cards to your neighbors, they've got these little walls that you build up. Like it's adorable, just hilarious. So super fun to play. And you can play, I mean, you can scale it back down. If it's a bunch of people who don't really play these games a lot, it's super easy to just pick one, take those 2, play one again, and yeah, it's rinse, wash, rinse, repeat. That's how you want to do it.
Lather, rinse, repeat.
Yeah, or lather, rinse, repeats, depending on your hair status. Yeah.
Oh,
So as I mentioned, we had one table. Laura and I played For Humors when Sky was here,
right.
And then Laura taught For Humors to a table of people last night twice. This is a game that I taught myself at Mythicon. Thank you, Mythicon. And it's just such a wonderful, weird little prisoner's dilemma, the board game. And you think you're going to resolve things based on area majorities, but it's not. It's based on this For Humors, bodily humors thing from the medieval, put medicine in scare quotes there. So super fun. We did play Coimbra Goes Back a couple of years, and the designers for Coimbra have done a lot recently. So this is like an early Flaminia Brasini and Virginio Gili, and other games, Grand Austria Hotel, Lorenzo Magnifico, Golem, First Rat. It's quite the list. And to keep putting out really interesting games. So this is an early kind of, not that early, piece of theirs. And what's fun about this is you've got multi-use dice, which you don't see a whole lot. And at one point you're using the dice to buy cards, and you're counting the pips on the dice, and then you take them over into your area, and then you get rewards based on the colors of the dice. So you're again using them in a couple of different ways. And then the real hard part is choosing which cards to buy. That was when the game kind of, and everybody's just standing over there going, because there's a lot of stuff you want, and you know that other people want what you're going to be leaving, and so it's super fun. Again, it took us longer to play. It's just takes a while, but it was well worth it. Super fun. And then the last one I have here on this list, Laura and I have been playing a ton of Forest Truffle, which came out.
I'm not familiar. I'm not familiar with that one.
Are you not?
No.
Okay. Oh yeah. So it came out in November. Okay. It is multi-use cards. There's a theme here about multi-use things. And you've got, let's see here. So the multi-use cards, and you've got trees to put down. So those are pretty straightforward, although some trees will score you points. Some will score you more points than others. And you've got animals that go above the trees and animals that go below the trees. And so the cards are split in half north to south. And then some of them go to one side of the trees, some of them go to the other side of the trees. So you've got them split in half east to west. And once again, you've got cards. You pay to play the cards by discarding cards from your hand that then go into a face-up discard. So you don't want to discard the cards that you know that your opponents want, except those are the ones you have the most of, and you still don't want them to have it, but you've got to play something. So it's a lovely. The game itself is super easy. You play cards or draw cards, but it's reading the cards, figuring out what they do, how they might work together, finding those combinations that are going to give you a lot of points, and you just play through this deck. And then there are 3 winter cards that are shuffled into the bottom third. And the third winter card, the game just ends immediately. So you're not quite sure when it's going to happen. It could happen very quickly in the bottom third, or you could go.
That card shows up very similar to like in Haunted Mansion.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, you've got the first one just to say, haha, winter's coming. Second one, ooh, it's getting late fall. Yeah. And then bang, you're done.
That's kind of interesting. I like that.
And it's just a deck of cards, is this game. Yeah. It comes with a little layout of the meta where you can discard two, but you don't have to have that to play it. It's just, you could just walk around with a stack of cards. It's fantastic.
You talked about something in your summary there. I think it might have been on the Coimbra, or it might have been the Four Humors, where you're talking about how, you've made your choice and you know that somebody else is going to take advantage of your choice, but you need that choice to still be there when you roll back around or what have you. And that's kind of how I think I heard it. We run into that a lot.
Yeah.
The phrase "thanks, Dale" or the phrase "thanks, Joe" is uttered a lot when we play games.
Yeah. You're welcome. You play the card. You're like, you're giving you the thing that you need. Yeah.
It's most notably like in Wingspan, where there's that high value card and it's sitting there and you know that you want it and then somebody takes it.
Yep. My favorite is when, you pull the card and then the next card that flips up, you're like, oh man.
Yeah.
That did not. The turkey, really? Okay. Yeah.
Exactly.
Or the Chihuahuan Raven or something. Yeah.
I have noticed, well, we're going to talk about Kickstarter here in a minute, and I think I've noticed that it's been a little quiet on Kickstarter. I have only backed one or two things since we were last together, but they've all been showing up, the ones that I've been looking at for the last 3 years, and that's one of the reasons why my picked up list is so vast. And it was I just ended up throwing them under the tree. I had I just took a big game bag, put them all in the game bag, and I put the game bag under the tree. I didn't want to individually. It was just forever. So I just put them all together, and it was just sort of like a smorgasbord, taking them out, and letting everybody see that. But I did back here recently on Kickstarter the Axe Letters from Rome, which is an extension board game, the Axe, which I got delivered last year. Great game, kind of inspired what I'm doing with my small group, and this is an expansion. So we'll just kind of see how that rolls around. Hopefully it'll be here this summer like they say it will. The supply chain seems to be catching up with everything. So that's pretty cool.
It does seem to, yeah.
I noticed you had one on here that you backed.
I did, yeah. So I saw a bunch of these, the adventurer bags.
Yeah.
At Mythicon, people had them. And I thought, ooh, that is a very fine looking bag for carrying board games around. And I take board games to campus a lot because the classes that I teach have board games in them. Hooray. So this one had closed, and then they opened up a late not bids. Pledge, yeah. And it's just, it does exactly what I want a board game bag to do, in particular, organizing the interior space, because I will frequently have like a couple of big games and then a couple of smaller games, and those just usually and sometimes just pop open and there are cards all over everything. So I like the way that it does that. Yeah.
Oh, that's very cool.
And a couple of different ways to carry it. So I'm pretty excited about having a nice game bag to travel to and from campus with.
That's very cool.
Yeah, and they also sell all kinds of weird stuff. I guess you can get play mats with LEDs. So with LEDs kind of stitched into the edge so that you've got light up play mats, which seems a little over the top, but if it makes your heart glow,
There you go.
Yeah.
I'll have to check it out.
Yeah. But the board game the bags look fantastic. I saw them again, the version 1 at Mythicon, and thought, I like the way they're shaped. I like the way they open. I like the way they've organized stuff. And they had version 2. So the Adventurer bag. Looking forward to that this summer.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
Yeah.
And I think you and I both were intrigued by the same thing. You got it on there first, so I'll let you bring that up.
Right. Well, speaking of Apiary and Elizabeth Hargrave, as we seem to be doing a lot of Wormspan, which one, the sort of cousin to Wingspan, when it first hit, I think everybody in the world thought, well, that's a joke, right? But no,
I
it is
looked
dragons, little bitty dragons.
I looked at the calendar to see, is it April already?
Mm-hmm. And the gameplay looks really good.
Yeah.
It is kind of the Wingspan Plus, yeah.
It's gonna be released what, at the end of this month? I think it's gonna
Yep.
be. Yeah. Yeah, I've been that pretty closely.
I have to. It looks really solid. I mean, I like stuff that Stonemaier doing. I like Wingspan a lot. I thought Apiary was fantastic. So really keen to, yeah.
What was funny about Wormspan is I saw his announcement, and then you texted me.
Oh yeah.
And then Dale sent it to me.
Awesome.
Wow, this is moving pretty darn fast.
Yep.
So I thought that was pretty funny.
Yeah, I've watched a couple of videos of him sort of talking through the mechanisms of it, and I mean, it feels like, I think people were expecting something heavier out of Wingspan, sort of the Stonemaier kind of fan base. They were thinking more, Scythe kind of stuff. And Wingspan is definitely not that.
No.
Although it's not as easy as it's, if you're not used to playing these games, it's not as simple to get into, not as intuitive to wrangle with.
Right.
But Wormspan 1, I think a lot of people like the theme. I saw people posting about it saying, yeah, I don't really like birds, but I love dragons. So yeah. And just a little bit crunchier with the rule set, not super crazy, but yeah, we'll see how this goes. I'm keen to try. So
yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
For that.
No, I think that'll be fun. Cool. And then I said I had my laundry list of things that I have picked up, not played yet because they are here on the shelf of shame. But Fox Experiment was one of them, and I mentioned that a little bit earlier in the podcast. I am anxious to get that out on the table next. That'll probably be the thing I do get out on the table next. But I just got to go through and get that third party part figured out, which I'm sure we will. So I would expect that by the next time we speak, I will have that moved up on the list. Right. Then some of these others, Leaf was one that I had backed on Kickstarter. It came a while back. It was already wrapped. So I was like, yep, that can wait till Christmas. So we got to get into that one. Start looking at it. But the artwork was great. Took it down to my in-laws over Christmas because my mother-in-law loves the art that comes with these board games. And so we spent a lot of time on that.
It looks beautiful. Yeah.
And then I'm going to talk about one, Agricola. I got the 25th anniversary of Agricola. And it is, one of the original Euro games, or one of the earliest.
Oh yeah, no, it's it put Uwe at the top of the oh my god, this guy kind of charts.
So the way it was, so in December I had a birthday, and my mom said, "Hey, why don't you just go get you one of those games you like so much?"
So you got the big box of Agricola.
So I went to the game store and I got the 25th anniversary of Agricola, which has got all the pieces and bits and stuff. Nice. So I thought, well, if you're going to go big or go home, right?
Sure. Absolutely.
So we have to kind of go back in time for this next one. I think we have to go all the way back to season 1.
Ah, yes.
And Zoo Tycoon was out on Kickstarter, and I said emphatically that I was not going to back it.
And then
back the next episode and said, yeah, I caved and I backed it. Well, it showed up.
Okay.
Again, we got to pull it out at Christmas. I kind of have to wait till the daughters are both in town for this, because this game was like their favorite video game growing up. And that was really
okay.
Of why I ended up getting it, because I kind of felt like, okay, we like Ark Nova. This is not Ark Nova. And we have New York Zoo. How many zoo games do you really need? But this was just a call back to something classic that was part of their childhood growing up, was Zoo Tycoon.
That's awesome.
How to do it.
And it looks like it's there's a lot going on. I'll be interested to hear how they respond to the mechanisms and playtime.
They may they may gravitate to it because I don't know how the playtime is going to interact with how the video game was or not. We'll find out.
Right.
Some people do a really good job of transferring the IP. Some people don't.
Well, and Dorfromantik is apparently a very popular video game, or just online game in Germany. So, and perhaps other places as well. I don't know, but it's a port.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I have no idea anything about the original game, but.
And then I have always been a sucker for anything pirate based.
Okay.
I love the idea of pirates. I really want to find. I still haven't found that gem of a pirate game that just really speaks to me. I played a few of them, but this is Lying Pirates: The Race to the Pirate Throne. It's a dice-based game.
Okay.
I backed it on Kickstarter. It was appealing to me based on the theme.
Sure.
And it's basically Liar's Dice.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
So,
I'm looking at it like, okay, and you've got chips to.
yeah.
All right.
So a different theme on a new skin to an existing concept that's been around for a while, but just to kind of put it in a pirate motif, and
Yeah.
that just spoke to me when I backed it.
That makes it. Yep.
And the box is beautiful. I mean, they've done a really
Oh yeah, no, it looks lovely. Yeah, it's amazing.
And then the last thing on my list is that Shadow Dark finally showed up. All of the content that I
Wow.
backed. That was one of the best selling Kickstarters of 2023. They did it in 2023. They got it delivered in 2023.
Wow.
It is one of the benefactors of the whole OGL kerfuffle.
Okay.
But I think it's got some legs. I'm anxious to. I have done a little bit of research. There is not a Roll20 for it yet, but there is
Okay.
Foundry. The Foundry VTT community have made it easier, I should say, to set up a Shadow Dark campaign if you have to do it virtually. So I'm going to explore that. I have the Foundry license. The Foundry license. I've just got the server, which I can do, and so I want to give that a go sometime this year. And I know a number of people that would like to try it.
So this is a just kind of a grimdark kind of history thing.
It's like the original manifestation of Dungeons and Dragons, but with a 5e overlay.
Okay.
Ish is probably the best way I know to.
Okay.
You've got 4 core classes: the fighter, the priest, the thief, and the wizard. So it's a little bit more old school, right?
Right.
Yeah, some of the things that we might be used to are pulled out, like dark vision and stuff like that. It just kind of goes back to a more classic way of playing. It's like modern, like 5e modernized it to the point that it made it extremely accessible. The thing about Shadow Dark is that it takes that paradigm and begins to introduce some of the original elements.
Okay. Trimming away a bunch of stuff to make it a little more hack and slash, and so
put
sort
the
of
governance back on the table, stuff like that. Just more of that fundamental D20 type of play.
Okay.
And we'll see. I'll be kind of curious to see how it goes. There's been a lot of hype about it. So we'll see. I'm excited to, when I got into this, when I reinvigorated this, what's been 5-6 years now.
Mm-hmm.
I was probably more closed to the idea of any tabletop role play that was not a dungeon or a dragon.
Fair.
And the OGL didn't really sway me on that. I mean, that wasn't the whole reason why I became open. I think it had more to do with things like DM Dave's Badge Quest and just finding that you could bring other concepts. And we've done some one-shots, like the Christmas Carol one-shot that we did a few years ago and the Krampus one-shot we did a couple of years back. And I think just having those different story elements and putting them in that play kind of opened me up to that. And then I thought, well, Shadow Dark.
Sure.
Anyway, just glad to see it finally show up, and the production value on that's really good. It's not as large as your traditional D&D book. It's more of like a novel type of size, like a hardback novel kind of size.
So probably 6x9.
Yeah, ish. And it's a production house of like 2 to 3 people.
Okay. And it looks like everything's black and white, sort of old school that way as well. Cool.
Bet. So I think it'll be fun to play around with, learn the world a little bit, and maybe try it as a one shot or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I think that there's as we go into 2024 and just a lot of these Kickstarters are rolling in, there's still a whole laundry list of ones. Right.
Still have to fulfill,
but it's interesting, I when I go into the game store now, it's you're also seeing it hit the shelves too, stuff, which is good. And our friendly local game store that we talk about, Carolina Tabletop Games, they're they had a great holiday season. They still have the big Magic crowd, they still have the big D&D crowd, they still have the Warhammer crowd, and it's just finally gotten to a point that it looks like they will be in a new location come spring. A larger.
I was hearing that. Yeah, that's awesome.
See how that all rolls around, but we're looking forward to that as well.
Yeah.
But beyond that, I have done no tabletop printing or any of that stuff. I haven't done any 3D prints this season yet, just because see previous comments on before.
Sure. Absolutely.
How about you? Are there any things that you've picked up, or I didn't see it on the list, but that doesn't mean you weren't inspired by
something. No, keeping my eye on Wormspan. The new games from the holidays, Flourish, For Humors, For Shuffle. Been playing around with those. Tussie Mussy was an easy one to pick up, like, oh hey, it's like what, $12, $15, something like that. It was a little tiny just sort of plastic wallet thing. Yeah, no, mostly it's the semester has begun, so a little less time to go out and just do random shopping stuff. So yeah, kind of laying low for the moment. Thinking about the big class in May, to what I'm gonna have those students play. So we're gonna be playing 4 hours a day, so that'll be interesting.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to hear how that goes. I almost want to come down and film a little bit of it. If we get the right releases, I guess. Yeah. But no, I'm excited about that for you. That's going to be a lot of fun. So yeah, I'm looking forward to this year of the podcast and seeing how things go with who we can get on the show, and what events we might be able to find our way to. I noticed that Gen Con was finally open.
Have they? Okay.
Tickets. I haven't quite decided if I want to try to get up there this year or not. A lot of crazy things going on, but I'll have to take a look.
Yeah.
So that's all I have this go around. How about you?
That's all I've got as well.
Well, we invite you to follow us at layitonthetable.show. And if you listen to us on a particular podcast provider like Apple Podcasts, please go and leave us 5 stars and a review. If you don't want to give us 5 stars, we'll take less and some criticism. That's okay. It's not going to hurt our feelings. You can also find us at Board Game Geek, where we have a guild, as well as you can find access, of course, to this podcast. And of course, we are on YouTube at the Geek and Southern. All that in the show notes below. And till we meet again, this is Joe Mahaffey. I am not bored. I am board gaming.
And I'm James Engelhardt. I hope all your tiebreakers break your way.
We'll see you in a few weeks.
See y'all.
1, 2, 3, 4.